Good morning, Kentucky. It's another warm Kentucky summer day, and to be honest, I'm getting kind of tired of the heat, but my garden is loving it, so it's not all bad. Today's theme for our Food Connection live stream cooking class is More Than Medi-okra, and Chef Tanya is going to be showing you some of the many wonderful ways to prepare and enjoy okra. And with us today is Dr. Tim Phillips. He's a superstar plant and soil scientist in the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture. And he loves to bring us vegetables and stuff to enjoy in the Food Connection. So if you've been with us for a cooking class, chances are you have tried some of his veggies. So he's going to talk to us about fescue, chia, pumpkins, rat-tail radishes, and of course, okra. So I'm going to bring them in and they can take it away.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Phillips. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Tanya. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're so excited to have you with us today. And I just have to say, for anyone who does know you, I'm sure they're on today because you're a favorite on campus. Anybody, when you say your name, they put their hand on their heart and they go, oh. So anyone if you are not familiar with Dr. Tim Phillips, you should get to know him. So can you tell us just a little bit about your role at the university, and then we'll get into the specific crops that you work with?
Sure. I've been at the University of Kentucky for a little over 28 years. My main job has been forage grass breeding, mainly tall fescue, but I work with orchard grass and timothy and other forage species. But I love plant breeding of all types. And a number of years ago, I did some rose breeding, developing some roses for the Arboretum. We auctioned off the naming rights for some of those as a fundraiser at the Arboretum.
Oh, okay.
And I guess about 15 years ago or so, I started working a little with chia. We tried to grow chia as a novel oilseed crop. It's a high omega-3 crop, but it's a short day flowering plant. So sort of like chrysanthemums or poinsettias, the natural chia wants to flower when the days are getting shorter. Typically after the first day of fall is when they're triggered to start flowering, and it would start flowering in mid-October and then get killed by the frost, and we wouldn't have any seeds. So we successfully use mutation breeding to make long day flowering chia. So chia can now be grown in Kentucky, and it's been grown in Quebec, Canada, and Italy, and a few other places in Germany. So our chia that we developed is doing quite well. Unfortunately, the chia price, there was an oversupply several years ago, overproduction, so the price really fell, which is good for consumers, but not so good for farmers trying to grow it. So we're still sort of waiting for the market to settle. But we're still growing. I have about 5 or 6 acres out for seed production. I have to produce the seed that the farmer in Kentucky that has the license to our chia, he grows that. About 5 years ago, my mother in North Carolina grows a big garden, a lot of vegetables, and she grows okra. And she asked why I hadn't bred any okra. Why we're not really stuck with the old varieties. They're really good heirloom varieties, and some of them are pretty famous, like Clemson Spineless, but it came out in 1939.
Wow.
And there are some nice new hybrid okras, hybrid varieties, and there are some sources of heirloom varieties that have anywhere from 30 to 50 varieties. So there's a lot of okra.
Wow, that's incredible. Yes. But now you have bred some of your own, right?
Yes. And it's sort of a side bench project that was easy to do. And making crosses, there's some varieties like Gold Coast, which is sort of smooth. It's round in cross section, or not so ribbed.
Huge.
Beck's Big Buck snapping okra is very ribbed. People who know okra may know Star of David. It also is deeply ribbed.
I've got one of those here. Yeah.
And there are some that are different colors. Burgundy is purplish red, and There's one that I sort of like because it's just so long and skinny. Stewart's the best. I just abbreviated SZ, use its initials. And I've crossed some of these, and when I cross Buck's big snapping okra with burgundy, the F1s are not quite as red as
Okay.
they're a little greenish red. But when I save the seed from the F1s, the next generation, I'll have some that will be as red as burgundy, and
It's the burgundy.
some will be ribbed, and there's a assortment. And another variety that I really like is Everkinder, and it's angular. It has sort of 5 sides to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I crossed it with the Stewart, the long, skinny one. And some of them are very pale, almost blonde colored, or there's one okra variety called Silver Queen. So this year I have a few of the parents just to save seed, so I can compare my new varieties with the existing varieties or their parents mainly, and trying to improve. Yield is important. Ease of picking. I don't like having to play tug of war with the plant. Sometimes if you have to pull too hard, you can break the plant. So that nice, easy snapping trait is really good.
I was going to ask you. So when you name these things, the snap would be an okra that you can pull off the vine pretty easily, or the plant very easily.
It just pops right off. Yeah.
Okay.
So Beck's Big Buck snapping okra, this one, is where that trait is expressed enough that people call this the snapping okra, because it just snaps right off. Even when it's this big, this is too woody to use to eat. I have some others that are smaller, the good size to use to eat. At some point, it would be good to do a taste test of different varieties, but I don't have enough seed, or it's not advanced enough. I'm in the F3 generation. I'll probably have to wait till 2 more years before I have I've selected. And some of it, plant breeders can have fun with naming a variety. So when I get a good offspring from Beck's Big Buck snapping okra crossed with burgundy, I want to call it Red Snapper.
That's like when you first brought some of the okra by, and you were telling me the names. I was scribbling them down. I remember Beck's the best, and the Silver Queen you were talking about, the really light green, and but some of the burgundy and the crimson, you as far as taste testing, you're talking about, you would bring them all to me together. So yeah. I wasn't quite sure about all of these. And that is one thing we did want to recognize you for, is how much okra you have brought us through the years. Everything that we're going to use today is actually from you. We blanched and chopped and froze it the last time you brought it by. So everything we have is yours today, and it's all the different varieties. I just want people to know that. Very briefly, before we get into cooking, just can we talk about those gorgeous pumpkins? Now, you brought us some a couple years ago. They were just for seed. And they had the big ovaries, and they had all kinds of lovely oily green seeds in them. But you were telling us, I mean, we cooked and tried the flesh, and you were saying it really wasn't for, and yeah, it was just sort of bland and it didn't have a lot of flavor, but the seeds were incredible. And now you're working on those right now as well.
Yes, the hollis, or naked seeded pepita type pumpkin. It's a recessive trait in the seeds where the hull is missing, but and in parts of Europe, I guess Hungary, Romania, Austria, where that trait first showed up. Even though pumpkins are New World, that naked seed trait came to us from Europe, where it was first observed and fixed. There are some varieties of the naked seed or hollis pumpkins that are dual purpose, that you can cook with the flesh part, the regular pumpkin, and save the seed. And you can also save the seeds of regular pumpkins that have the hulls. They're sort of like sunflower seeds. You have to hull them. But so I'm making some crosses this year, trying to move the hollis trait into pie pumpkins. I thought about trying to make a cushaw that would have naked seeds, but didn't do my homework beforehand, and I found out that Cushaw is actually a different species.
Okay.
And maybe it's possible to cross. I don't know. I've made the crosses, but we'll see if I get any seed from them. But it would be neat to see, to have more options in the naked seed trait. And in Europe, they use the seeds and extract the oil from it and use that as salad oil, not for cooking, but for dressing salads and things. And only recently has pepitas become more widespread, and people are eating the toasted seeds, and they're quite delicious. So and the variety that I grew 2 years ago was called Godiva, because it was naked seed. I have a couple different varieties this year. There's an old landrace called Williams, and I have one hybrid variety that I'm growing, as well as several pie pumpkins and Cushaws.
Well, that's wonderful. We're looking forward to it. We really did enjoy those seeds. We snacked on them quite a bit. We dried them out, like you said, since they are so oily. We did have to dry them, and then we roasted. And then you were also telling us that although we didn't get to that point, you could pop the seeds, almost like popcorn. Was it in the microwave? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe that would happen if you roasted them in the oven. If I had roasted mine in the oven long enough, just for them to start getting toasted, I didn't want to burn them, so I took them out of the oven a little earlier than I should have. So I thought, I wonder if I could warm them up in the microwave, and that's when they started popping and became much crunchier. So the mouthfeel was much better when they were crunchier.
That is awesome. And one of the last things, you were mentioning your mother's vegetable garden. You brought me she had some little sweet peppers that were stuffed with kraut. That you brought by as a lovely gift, and those were absolutely delicious as well.
Yeah, she grows a lot of those in cans and sells them in North Carolina, and she does some pickled okra and sauerkraut. The stuffed peppers, actually, it's just grated cabbage, and it's a sugar vinegar brine. But some people have asked her if she would do it with sauerkraut, but it would be possible, but I'm not sure where that recipe came from of the sweet stuffed pickled peppers. And a lot of people want hot stuffed peppers, so she can grow the hot cherry peppers or just the regular sweet peppers and put slices of jalapeno or some other hot pepper in with
the brine. Yes. Oh, that would be great. Sweet and hot. That's a wonderful combination.
I'd never heard of this, but people who like hot peppers have asked her to start putting hot peppers in her sauerkraut.
So for a spot, well, I haven't had that before either. So all kinds of ideas. We may have to do some experimenting here in the kitchen once we get back to more food production ourselves. Well, Dr. Phillips, it's been a treat to have you with us today. We thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you giving to us. We always appreciate all the okra that you bring by for us, and we certainly love putting it to good use. We pickle it as well. If you've ever been in our kitchen for the winter welcome, you know that we love putting out your pickled okra, and we really appreciate you coming by. Now we're going to show folks how to use up all this okra that you grow and all these different varieties. So I want to thank you once again just for coming and joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We're going to get going today because we have 3 great recipes to show you. And thank you, Lexi, for bringing that up. This is some okra that we put away last year when Dr. Phillips brought it by. This is all the different varieties. As you can see, there are some long, skinny ones. There are some thick ones. And Dr. Phillips picks these just about every day. Every other day to every day, because he said if they stay on the plant longer than that, then that's when they get woody and inedible. Now, if you are not a big okra lover, and it's a polarizing vegetable, so you may want to try it a couple of the ways we're going to do today, because they're easy introductions. 2 of them are very simple and easy recipes themselves, so they're super easy to cook. So if you have a neighbor who's growing okra, or if you see it at the farmer's market, most of what you're going to find in major groceries is already frozen, already processed, or it's made into those okra chips that you see in the health foods bulk section of your grocery stores. What you may have to go to a farmer's market. Also, if you're in Lexington, you can always try the Indian or South Asian markets. A lot of times they'll have fresh okra in their produce bins. So those are some ways that you can find okra, but of course it's best if you can just go out to the garden and snap it off yourself. As you can see, all of this is green, even though some of the varieties that Dr. Phillips has grown are red or very crimson, dark red, burgundy. When you blanch, I've talked about this with peppers and with asparagus before, but when you blanch or start to cook a vegetable that is originally green that has some other color in it, it usually turns back to green unless you are just very lightly cooking it. So this is what we're going to work with today. The first recipe, I'm going to pull my kit up here, and this is really simple. If you're in Lexington and are a fan of eating out at Ramsey's, you may have had a dish like this. This is just a very simple stewed okra with tomatoes. The acid goes really well with the okra. I'm going to go ahead and I'm turning on a sauce pot, and we're going to turn you around here just for a second. Now, it can be just as simple as onion, tomatoes, and I've got some crushed tomatoes here. I've got a little bit of tomato juice that we all put away last summer. It's 19. And then this is Dr. Phillips okra. This is okra that we sliced, and then you blanch it in some hot water for about 30 seconds to a minute. You drain it, and then you can throw it in a bag and throw it in the freezer. It's as easy as that. So if you have an abundance of okra, that's one thing you can do. You also, the okra that I just showed you was blanched and shocked and put into the freezer whole like that. Now, I've not used that for one of my recipes before, so we'll see how that goes. But I wanted to use Dr. Phillips okra today, so that's why we're using all of the frozen. I didn't want to obligate him to bring that by. Our buildings are still locked down until we get students on campus. So probably locked down for another week. I didn't want to have to make everybody run through those hoops. So I've got half of an onion, and all I'm going to do is, well, I didn't take off all of my stem in there, but we are going to, I'm going to try to get you where you can see. I'm just going to dice this onion. So I'm bringing it close to the edge of my board, and I'm cutting almost, but not all the way through, a couple of times parallel to the board. That's going to give me 3 slices, and then I'm going to turn it toward me using just the tip of my knife. Again, I don't want to go through the end of that onion because I want the end to hold it together, and I'm sort of just pressing the tip straight down into the onion so that I get sticks that are all held together. And then when I cut across the sticks, then I get a perfect medium dice on that. Now your okra it's best on this if you slice your okra. So if you have fresh, you're just going to slice it up to the tip, to the stem, use the stem as a little handle. And then you can just discard that stem. Now it will start to get, as people like to term it, slimy. Okra is a mucilaginous vegetable. That means it gives off that thickening clear liquid. But that is a wonderful resource if you are trying. That's why okra is used in a lot of stews, because it does thicken the stew. And that's a property that we're looking for. So I've already crushed up my tomatoes. I've already got my juice open. So now that we've got the onion cut, it's pretty simple. I also do have some corn that we got from it's peaches and cream from Rockcastle County. We actually remembered to write the county on the bag when we froze it. So we're going to throw in a little bit of that. That's not in the recipe on the online that you have access to if you go to our website. You can go there, and there's okra 3 ways. So you'll see all 3 of these recipes on our website today. Now I've got my pan hot. I'm going to slide you around so you can see hopefully what's going on in the pan. Let me get you closer. We'll see if we can get a bird's eye view here, at least pretty close. And I've got just a wee bit of extra virgin olive oil. Now, in my household, we always had a little jar of bacon grease. So that would be, if you eat pork products and bacon, that would be a wonderful addition. I'm just going to go in with the onion and saute those just for a minute. Just until they get going. I want to go ahead and caramelize those onions a tiny bit before we start putting in all this liquid. Now, when you have water in vegetables, onions are very watery. You want to evaporate a little bit of that water so that the sugars start to concentrate. Next, I'm going to go in with the okra after sauteing for about a minute or two. And then I'm going to put the tomatoes in last, a little bit of salt and pepper. And since our corn is cooked, you cook it before you freeze it. So it really doesn't need to cook all that much, just needs to heat through. We're going to put that in very last. So I've got medium-high heat on the burner here. And my onions are starting to take on just the tiniest bit of color and get translucent. So I am going to add the okra now. Again, don't be too scared about the sticky quality of okra. Acid, such as tomatoes, will actually help that, a lot of that, go away. So I've got the okra in there. Now I'm going to pour in crushed tomatoes. These are just some crushed Romas. And I'm going to pour in a little bit. These don't have enough juice for a stew, so I'm going to pour in a little tomato juice we canned with UK CSA tomatoes. They do sell tomatoes in bulk boxes through the CSA, and you don't have to be a CSA member to get that. You can purchase those through the UK CSA website. So just if you Google UK CSA, you can go there. And they have big cases of tomatoes you can purchase for canning. So we've got our tomato in there. I'm going to turn up the burner just a moment. I'm going to put in a wee bit of salt. Now, most tomatoes these days are pretty sweet. They're bred to be sweeter and sweeter. In fact, that's why you have to put a little acid like lemon juice in when you do can your tomatoes. Because we've asked that they be bred sweeter and sweeter. I know someone who complains quite a bit about how sweet tomatoes are now, that they don't have quite the tang that they used to. If your tomatoes are really tangy, though, you may want to taste it and adjust it. You may want to add just a tiny bit of sugar. Just depends on your tomatoes. If they're really super sweet and you don't like that, you want a little bit of tang, you might want to add some acid. So a tiny bit of lemon juice or a tiny bit of vinegar. But otherwise, you're going to add, I'm adding this sweet corn, so that's going to make everything really nice and sweet. I'm going to add about a half a cup to a cup to this amount. Put this in here. All of the student workers helped put this corn away last year. I warned them, we got the fresh corn, and I warned them to wear old clothes and probably cover up their hair, because if you've ever put corn away, you know once you cut it and milk all the cobs that you have cornstarch splatters from head to foot, and we certainly did that day. I think we did about 10 or 12 dozen ears of corn in one day. So all I'm going to do then, yes, Lexi.
I remember canning all those tomatoes and freezing all that corn, and it is hard work, but it's such a wonderful way to be able to enjoy your CSA and your farmers market purchases all year. So definitely recommend trying it out.
Absolutely. And you don't have to do it in the big batches we did. If you just have a dozen ears of corn, it might be worth cutting them off, scraping all of the rest of the kernel out, which we call milking. You get all of the liquid and the tiny little bits, and then you just put it on to cook it. Just like it is, just a little bit until it cooks out a little of that starch and it doesn't taste so raw. Your corn will turn a brighter, darker yellow or whatever color it is. And then you just let it cool, pack it in bags and freeze it. And again, you want to write on it what it is, what kind of variety. That way, if you like it, you can try it again. We always try to put the county or the farm that it's from so that we can remember to tell you guys where we found that lovely local stuff. So I'm coming up to a boil now. I'm going to turn that down to a low simmer so that all of that can cook together and get nice and happy. And then I'm going to show you a really super simple one. I wanted to get the stew on so it could stew for a bit while we're talking about the other things. Now, for this, I've just got Dr. Phillips okra. The tips have been cut off. I'm not going to do anything else to it. If you don't like that slimy quality, I hate to even call it slimy. If you don't like that sticky quality, this might be a recipe for you. So I'm going to take the okra, just a handful of it. I'm going to add in some sliced onion. You could do sliced green onion as well. There's a lot of green onion about this time of year. I'm going to take just a little bit of that olive oil, pour over it, sprinkle liberally with some salt and a little bit of pepper. Now, this is a great one. You could do this while you're preparing other things. So I'm going to toss all this together. Now, if you have fresh okra, it will not, by the time you do this, it probably won't be giving off any of the stickiness yet. So it's one good way to mitigate all of that. Now, this has already been cooked and blanched. That's why ours is just a wee bit sticky. So I'm going to get a sheet pan, and I've lined it with some parchment just for ease of cleanup. And I'm going to pour all of this onto my sheet pan, get all of it out of there. And you want to make sure whenever you're roasting on a sheet pan that you've just got a single layer, that things aren't laying on top of each other, because they'll steam instead of roast. So we don't want, and you see all of these different varieties, aren't they wonderful? Because you have some with all of the ribs and some that are really smooth. The darker ones, you can see those were the red ones. We're going to pop this in the oven. I've got it on 400. It is a convection oven. Oh, I'm steaming up and I don't even have a mask on. It is a convection oven, so I have a convection fan on. So we're probably at about 425. And I'm going to start a 7-minute timer for myself. Now, since these are frozen and I haven't roasted from frozen before, I'm just going to check them at that point. Hopefully they will be done. Hopefully the onion slices will be caramelized. And while all of that happens, I have a pot of oil on. I'm trying to keep my oil at about 350, and it's kind of hard on an open flame because we are going to make okra fritters. Now, these are a favorite. These are a crowd favorite. Year after year, we do these for special occasions like our winter welcome, or when we have groups coming in and want to do a really special cooking class. I hope we get back to that day very soon. I've got about 2 cups of sliced okra here, a little bit of red onion. You can use green onion on this as well. I've got red onion I need to use up here in the kitchen, so that's what I'm doing today. I've got a couple of teeny tiny Chelsea's eggs. They have the pullet eggs right now at the Good Foods Co-op, so they are really small. The recipe calls for a large egg, so I'm going to use the better part of both of these. I'm just going to crack those. Look at the lovely light, kind of a really light robin's egg green color. So I'm going to open both of those and give them just a little whisk with my slurry whisk so that they're easier to pour in, and I can maybe measure out. See, that's a little bit more than 1 large egg. So I'm just going to pour some of this mixture in. I have a little bit of evaporated milk, about ½ a cup, 2 tablespoons or a little bit more. You don't have to worry about cheese around here. We like using plenty of cheese. So about 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. And then I've got a mixture of a 1/4 cup of Weisenberger flour and a 1/4 cup of Weisenberger white cornmeal. Now, you could use any kind of cornmeal that you have. So I'm putting the dry ingredients in. Let's see, let's get it right there. Okay, we're going to mix the dry ingredients. I've got that parm. We're going to throw that in. I've got some parsley that I took from my pot this morning. Just mince that up. Going to mix that in. And now I'm going to throw in that red onion. You want about 2 tablespoons. I'm not going to use all of that. And then we can mix in what we're going to use of the egg. Again, 1 large egg. So I'm going to go a little bit more than half here. Mix that with my evaporated milk. So I've got dry ingredients and wet ingredients. And we're going to mix the wet with the dry. And pull that together into a pretty thick batter. And then we're going to add a little bit of salt, of course. Always salt and pepper, right? And to this, we'll also add just a tiny, tiny pinch of cayenne. Be careful with your cayenne, folks. We've had people dump entire ramekins like this full of cayenne into things, and then we tell them we hope they like hot things. So just a little pinch of the cayenne, and then we're going to add, you just want enough batter to kind of hold your, this may not take all of that, hold your okra together. Now, if you like the breaded and fried okra, I think you're really going to like these fritters. It's a little bit heftier than when it's just breaded and fried. All right, that's pretty good right there. Could probably add a little bit more okra. Oh, it's smelling so good. Now, to serve these, we're going to fry these up in 350-degree oil, and then we're going to drain them on some paper towels. You can serve these with any kind of sauce you like. Today I have, it's a Cajun Creole sauce called remoulade. And think of it like a smokier, spicier, tangier kind of tartar sauce. It's got some capers and green onion and parsley in here, a little mayo. I used, you can use like coarse grain mustard, Dijon mustard, but I have a Creole mustard here that's just a little bit tangier and hotter. And then you do some tarragon vinegar in here, which we anytime we have tarragon that's going bad, we just throw it in a jar full of apple cider or white wine vinegar, and that way we have tarragon vinegar. So we get that flavor. Fresh tarragon would be wonderful in here as well. So I've got a purple scoop. I've got my oil is kind of hot right now. We're about 375. It is kind of difficult to keep the oil at a constant temp on the open flame. But we're going to take that scoop, and contrary to what you may want to do, you want to get that scoop pretty close to the oil so that you're not plopping it in there and splashing hot oil back up on yourself. So I'm just scooping these directly down in. Now do these in small batches so that you don't overcrowd and you don't bring the temp of your oil down too much all at once. You want to keep your oil about 350 and not let it go up too high, because it will burn the outside, but your inside won't be finished. Now, if you do find yourself with oil that's really hot, then what you can do is just brown the outside, throw them on the paper towels on a sheet pan, and then pop it into a warm oven, and the oven will finish the inside. So we're going to just turn these over a couple of times so that all sides get cooked evenly. And our stew is going really well. And we've got less than a minute left on our roasted okra. So we should be starting to bring all of this up about the same time. Hopefully, we'll see how that roasted okra goes. I'm going to turn our stew up just a bit so that it cooks down and gets lovely together. I'm going to give it a taste and adjust the seasoning on that. So I have my tasting spoon here. Oh, that's lovely, but it does need a little bit more sauce or salt. It's very saucy. We don't need more sauce. A little bit more pepper. And we'll turn these once again. Make sure that they're getting even on all sides. And if you're worried about whether or not you've got these cooked, all you have to do is maybe do a little testy one, like a tiny one. There's my beeper for the okra in the oven. Oh, it's getting going. I think it needs just about 2 or 3 more minutes. So we'll set that on there. Starting to get a little bit caramelized. Actually, I'm going to give it a stir in the oven. And again, now going back, we're going to flip these over again. This is the perfect temp right here. We're at, oh, we're a little low now. So see, when you put in your batter, it does lower the temperature of your oil significantly. Also turning it down probably did too. But we are starting to get good browning on that. You could serve that with a remoulade, like we're doing today. Any kind of like a tartar-based or mayo-based sauces would be okay as long as they're tangy. As long as, well, now I've made my fan come on. That's going to be noisy for you. I do apologize about that. It's temperature-based. I can't control it. I will try to turn it off in just 1 minute so we don't have all that noise. You can serve it with a marinara or any kind of tomato-based sauce. That would be good because that's tangy. You've got those rich fritters that have been fried in oil. So you want to have something that'll cut that a little bit. Maybe some pepper jelly, so that sweet, tangy heat will be great on there. But these are wonderful to make up in big batches. Pile them up on a platter with the sauce and let people just go. I'm going to, I think our stew is looking really good. And we've got about 1.5 minutes left on the roasted okra. I'm going to flip these fritters one more time. anytime you're concerned about a cooked product like a batter or say a meatball or something, just always make yourself a little taste tester. So it's just like 1/3 of this amount. It's just a little bite. You cook it up and then you taste it. So if you're making meatloaf or something and you're worried about how salted it is, or if you've got the right balance of everything, or even if it's going to bind together really well, you can just make a little meatball, fry that in a pan, taste it, see how it's going to hold together. Same thing with this batter. You could just do a spoonful into the oil before you start frying, and then you can taste it. That way you don't have to taste raw egg or anything like that. So that's a little chef hack tip for today. I'm going to go ahead and ladle up some of our stew. And really, I think I could just do this stew with a little cornbread and be happy there. And I'm going to take out the fritters from the oil, put them on. I've got layers of paper towels here so they can drain. And that's our timer on the roasted okra. So we're going to let these drain. I'm going to flip you back around here so you can see me plate. We're going to put all of the okra dishes onto one plate today because it's okra 3 ways. I'm going to pull out the okra that's in the oven. Oh, it smells so good. Oh, yes. So we've got some wonderful caramelization on the okra itself and on the onions. I've got tongs here. You don't want to cook your okra too long. It will get soft and mushy. You can see this still has some body to it. I love all the different shapes and the different shades of green. You could let these go a little further here. The ribbed ones, the Buck's Best snapping that are going to help give us the snapping, the red snappers once they're bred. So there's our roasted okra looking beautiful. And now I'm going to do just one more sprinkle of salt onto the fritters. Let's turn this around this way. Now I am, if you're like me and you don't like frying things, it might be difficult to get yourself to do these, but really I've got about a half a pan's worth of fryer oil, and on these cooler nights that we have, maybe you could do the frying kind of late and then open your window a bit to get some fresh air to get that fry smell out of there. Okay, so here's our remoulade. I'm just going to drape over the fritters. I've got some chive somewhere here. We'll sprinkle some chive on that. We will put a little fresh parsley garnish in our soup. And there you have it. You have, don't want to tilt too much. There we go. Okra 3 ways. Again, if you are new to okra, if you've not had it a lot, if you think you don't like okra, try one of these ways. The roasted okra, once I do it, it's like popcorn. I can't stop snacking on it. And it's a wonderful way to introduce that vegetable to yourself. Of course, anything is better fried and with cheese and with the sauce. That might be a good way. This is nice because you do get to actually still taste the okra in the fritter batter. And then, of course, we have this wonderful, fresh tasting stew. All of the recipes are up on our website. We have 2 more Monday morning demos with you. So our summer's coming to an end. Classes start on the 17th. So that will be our last one. Next week, we have UK alumni, former student worker at the Food Connection, Bethany Procopa. She is going to be leading the demo that day. And that is in lieu of a class she was supposed to do for us in the spring as a graduating student. So we're looking forward. She works with many farmers markets now. She can talk about her new role next week. So we'll see you next Monday at 11 for Bethany. And then our final demo is a guest chef demo with Chris Kane of Daughters Southern. He used to be here at UK. He was a chef for the basketball team. He has also worked with Food Chain. and helped out with their culinary worker training program to help get people ready for careers in kitchens, in professional kitchens. And he will be joining us. He does a lot of Southern fare and Southern cuisine that I think you all will love. And so that's a perfect way to end our series of Monday morning demos. Make sure to get notifications so that you won't miss those two. You won't want to. And we'll see you again next Monday.